There's a part of your car that salespeople almost never talk about. But here's the thing, it could be the single most important piece of equipment that decides whether you walk away from a crash. And no, we're not talking about the engine or the brakes. We're talking about the secret lifesaver hidden right under you in your car seat.
Have you ever had this happen? You spend forever getting your driving position just right, but a few weeks later, you realize you're kind of staring up at the steering wheel instead of over it. Let me tell you, that is not your imagination. And it's way more than just a little annoyance. It's a massive warning sign.
So, what's the culprit? It's a little mechanism called the seat height adjuster. In the car industry, they just call it a lifter. Now, most of us think of it as that handle we use to get a better view. But in reality, it's one of the most vital safety devices in your car. And you guessed it, one of the most frequently skimped on by manufacturers to save a few bucks. Okay, so let's get one thing straight right now. This is not a comfort feature. You need to think of it more like a precision jack, one that's built specifically for your body. Its entire job is to lock you into the car's safety grid. If that jack fails, well, the airbags and seatbelts might just fail right along with it. It has one job and one job only, to perfectly position what car engineers call your H point. And yeah, that's basically the pivot point of your hips, or as we like to call it, your butt's golden coordinate. This isn't just some random spot. It's the exact coordinate that lines up your entire body with all the safety systems. If you get this wrong, you're messing with your vision, your spine, and, I'm not kidding, your chances of survival. So how big of a deal is this H point, really? Well, let's break it down. Its position affects three absolutely critical things: what you can actually see out the windshield, the health of your spine on those long drives, and most importantly, whether your car can save your life in a crash. Let's talk vision first. If your seat is just 5 centimeters, that's barely 2 inches, too low, your front blind spot gets bigger by 1.2 meters. To put that in perspective, that's about the length of a small child. This isn't just about getting a nice view, it's about seeing a hazard in front of you in time to actually do something about it. Now let's talk about your spine. If you're sitting too low, the pressure on your lower back, your lumbar spine, spikes by 40%. Ever gotten out of the car after a road trip and wondered why your back is just screaming at you? A lot of the time, it's because a cheap seat adjuster has slowly let you sink down, messing up your posture and putting a crazy amount of strain on your back. And finally, survival. In a crash, this little mechanism has to take on forces up to 2,000 kilograms. That is literally the weight of a small SUV trying to tear it apart. If it breaks or even just slips a notch, you submarine. You slide right under the seatbelt and the entire safety system becomes pretty much useless. So the takeaway here is this: if your seat height is wrong, the results can be brutal. If you're too low, the seatbelt can ride up and choke your neck. Too high, and it digs into your abdomen, potentially damaging internal organs. And if that H point is off, the airbag that's supposed to hit you in the chest might hit you right in the face. All of a sudden, that 5-star safety rating your car has, it might mean nothing for you. Okay, so this brings us to that moment in the dealership. You know the one. The salesperson starts talking about the premium upgrade to the fancy electric seats. But is electric really better or safer? Let's get into the real story that they probably won't tell you. Just take a look at the costs here. A manual adjuster costs a tiny fraction of an electric one. Manuals use a simple, super strong mechanical lock. Sure, electrics are smooth and have that cool memory function, but they have so many more parts that can fail, they can get noisy over time, and get this, they might not even work if the car loses power in an accident. The cost difference is huge, and more often than not, the simpler design is the more reliable one. And this really gets to the hard truth of it all. The real debate here isn't about whether it's manual or electric. It's all about the quality of the engineering. A really well-made manual adjuster with a rock-solid lock is way safer than a cheap, flimsy electric one. It all comes down to the quality of the parts you can't even see. So let's bust a couple of those common myths you always hear. First up, electric is safer. We know that's just false. A high-quality manual lock is way more reliable when things go bad. Myth number 2, you need to sit high for a good view. Also false. If you sit too high, your head gets dangerously close to the roof and you lose support under your thighs, which makes you tired. The goal isn't to sit highest, it's to sit right. So how do car engineers actually know if a seat adjuster is any good? Well, they basically put it through hell. It's a torture test. 50,000 cycles of moving it all the way up and all the way down, simulating an entire lifetime of use and abuse. This is where the quality parts are separated from the junk. You can think of it like a story of survival. After just 5,000 cycles, the cheap parts are already starting to rattle. By 15,000 cycles, the gears on the poorly made manual ones start to get stiff and bind up. Hit 30,000, and the cheap electric motors are whining and screaming in protest. But the really well-engineered ones, after all 50,000 cycles, they still feel brand new, totally silent, perfectly smooth, and solid as a rock. And here's the really brutal reality check. Fewer than a third of the parts that go through this test actually pass and still feel like new. This is exactly why a seat that feels super solid in the showroom can turn into a rattling, sinking disaster just a year later. You're either paying for good engineering or you're not. Okay, so how can you possibly spot the difference on a quick 10-minute test drive? I'm going to give you a simple 2-minute trick. This is your anti-scam tool that will tell you instantly if you're sitting on quality engineering or a future headache. All right, here it is. First up is the limit test. Run the seat all the way to the top and all the way to the bottom. At the highest point, you need at least a fist's width of space between your head and the roof. Find that sweet spot where your thighs are roughly parallel to the floor. Now for the most important part, the shake test. Lock that seat in place, and I mean really try to shake it, side to side, back and forth. If you feel any clicking, any rattling, any movement at all, walk away. A quality adjuster should feel like it's been welded directly to the car's frame. So here is what you absolutely need to remember. First, a great manual seat is always, always better than a cheap electric one. Don't fall for the fancy tech gimmick. Second, durability is everything. That showroom feel can disappear incredibly fast. And third, and most important, this isn't about comfort. It's about geometry, physics, and your survival. So the next time you find yourself at a car dealership, before you even look at the fancy touchscreen or check out the sunroof, I want you to do that 2-minute seat test. Because when it really comes down to it, sitting right is always going to be more important than sitting inexpensive. Your safety literally depends on it.